Today, it is an honor and privilege to introduce to you our next speaker. She recently celebrated her birthday last Wednesday, November 25. Would you believe in that? And on behalf of the RCW Board of Directors, I would like to greet her a happy birthday. She was a former chairperson, Commission on Audit, and a committee member of United Nations Audit Advisory, and also a former member of the RCW Board of Directors. Without any further delay, please welcome Attorney Grace Tan.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, good afternoon. So, am I supposed to start already?
Yes, the floor is yours, Attorney Tan.
There. Okay, just wait for that. So, thank you for the very kind introduction, but I think that para naman meron akong key to be talking about this topic, I think that I'd like to say I'm a mother of 5 very strong-willed and I'd say very accomplished and driven children, as well as a wife to an equally driven, accomplished, and strong-willed husband. So, kailangan along the way, that's why I'm very happy that early on, I met Sister Harriet, sister pa siya nun, si Ne, and we've been friends since then. So kahit papano, you know, I learned, and I would credit Harriet Ne for a lot of the positive things that I managed to do in my journey. So here goes. I was really wondering why she gave me this topic, but anyway, now I realize. So let's begin. First slide, please. So in The Road Less Traveled, Dr. Scott Pett defined love as the will to extend oneself for one's own spiritual growth or another's. Spiritual growth being not in the religious sense, but the alignment of our thoughts and actions to our higher purpose as we journey through life. An integral component of love and caring is empowering ourselves and others towards that goal. Asarita Sahara, next slide please. Asarita Sahara, the Indonesian media personality and author, puts it, one of the greatest things that we can do to help others, it is not just to share and give what we have, but to help others discover what they have within themselves to help themselves. That to me is the best definition of empowerment as I understand it. Empowerment, whether of ourselves or others, requires a good dose of self-awareness of our strengths and weaknesses. In other words, we have to know ourselves, our values and overarching goals in life. We need a can-do mindset, a strong will to keep on growing towards our goals. We need emotional intelligence to deal with the rough and tumble within and without ourselves, to build resilience and agility. I mean, all of this we have heard from our sharers and speakers in the last 2 days. We also need to develop the appropriate competencies to make responsible choices, define boundaries, and objective standards of accountability. Most of all, we must believe that we are truly created in the image and likeness of God and in the reality of fullness of life that He came to give us and wants us to have and enjoy. I actually first heard of this E-word from our very own Harriet in RCW1 many years ago. It was in the context of making able or enabling, which I now call capacitating. And I learned it firsthand from my parents, who have indelibly marked practically every area of my life by their amazing prescience. I'm the eldest of seven children of a middle class family in a remote rural town in the north. Early on, my parents gave me chores, including marketing, cooking, minding my mom's sari-sari store on weekends. My main chore, opisyo, my mother called it, was to take care of my siblings. I was yaya to the two youngest, so I learned to feed, burp, change diapers, and bathe babies long before I had my own. I oversaw my siblings' performance of their own chores and made sure they behaved well. When my parents went out of town, they left the care of my siblings and our home to me. And I remember relatives and friends admiring how responsible and capable I was, even at a young age. In our lingo now, parentified. Surely I did not learn to do any of these things on my own. My parents taught me. They also taught me how to engage with people from all walks of life and make polite and gracious conversation. They hammered down on me by words and example the value of money, hard work, a good education, accountability, stewardship, integrity, prayer, and a great dose of sacrificing love. I often felt burdened with being the eldest child and all the responsibilities they said came with it. Their buzzwords were always, kaya mo yan, o kayanin mo yan. When I was admitted to the University of the Philippines at 16, my parents told me to enroll myself. Being a certified probinsyana, I was mortified. But off I went, commuting by myself for the first time by bus in the big city, not even knowing where and how to go and what to do exactly. I just had to turn on my inner compass, and by God's grace, I made it. It was a monumental aha moment and defining accomplishment for me, one that I would thereafter dig into whenever I got into uncharted territory. For the first time, I began to truly appreciate all those years that my parents put me in training for the world, as it were. I realized that all along, they so believed in me and my capabilities, and that gave me so much confidence. They actually took very good care of me by empowering me, and I am very thankful. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. One or our most important task, it's okay. Can you go back to the first one? I'm sorry, I missed that. Go to the previous, please. Okay. Our most important task as parents, according to Dr. Ruth Nemtsov of Don't Bite Your Tongue. So I think that's to move the slides, please. There. Okay. She is one of my favorite authors, and she wrote Don't Bite Your Tongue, is to help our children develop the competencies they need to cope with what life will bring. The greatest gift we can give our children, it is said, are the roots of responsibility and the wings of independence. Next slide, please. Indeed, because as the great Khalil Gibran said, our children are not our children. We are simply the bows from which they, as living arrows, are set forth to go swift and far. I followed my parents' example closely with my own children. But while my parents were big on teaching the physical life skills, chores, how to's, my husband and I were big on the abstract: God's love and mercy, values, self worth, problem solving, discernment, decision making, conflict resolution, critical and creative thinking, accountability, autonomy. This is not to say that we are experts in all of this. Far, far, far. But whatever little we knew, we brought them to the table to prepare our children for however the new millennium was going to turn out. After all, we will not always be around for them, so it is our responsibility to help them develop their gifts and potentials for their own sake and to honor our God for giving them to us. For example, I did not regularly sit down with my children to help them with schoolwork, but only if they asked. Even so, I asked a lot of questions to elicit greater interaction in the hope that they would learn to express themselves, think critically, and hit on the right approach and answers. When they bickered among themselves, and as I said, I have five, I would ask them what they thought was the fair thing to do. When we saw a movie or read a book, I asked what they found most interesting and why, and that if they had their way, what would they change in the story and why? My husband and I engaged them in many ways and gave them space to be imaginative and to make decisions for themselves. For as long as we thought that their decisions were not dangerous or self destructive, we generally let them be. And we made sure to be always available, giving them support and guidance, exposing them to the world, and stimulating their senses. This was by no means easy. There was always the temptation to yield, to spoon feed, lalo na pagod ka na. But we had to be patient, consistent, and firm. There were always doubts whether we were doing it right or wounding our children instead. I worried that my children could be filled with guilt or feelings of inadequacy. We did not have all the answers, but we kept on and persevered in prayers for divine guidance and wisdom. There were many emotionally charged moments too, especially when our children felt burdened with responsibility, as I was while growing up. But that was an integral part of the process, the feedback and recalibration. It was a difficult and delicate balance of letting go and sheltering. Next slide, please. Dr. Scott Peck's reflection in Further Along the Road Less Traveled on the parable of the ten virgins from Matthew 25, verses 1 to 13, may perhaps describe our life experience of empowering our children. He said, "The oil in this parable was a symbol for preparation. We cannot share our preparation. You cannot do others' homework for them. Or if you do their homework, you cannot earn their degree for them. So the only thing we can do, and it is often very difficult, is to try as best we can to impart to others a motive for them to prepare themselves by attempting to teach them how important they are, how beautiful they are in the eyes of God." Today, thanks be to God, all our children are leading productive and engaging lives. They are all highly and well educated in fields and schools of their choice. All went to college abroad and managed to live frugally and responsibly on their own, away from the familiar and safe comforts of home. We are especially humbled that they are all very hard and fastidious workers, motivated, self directed, sensible, resilient, and adaptable. And how they are taking care of each other, even as they continue to have their fair share of misunderstandings and individual differences. Our eldest is empowering our grandchildren too. They are growing without the yaya and are the most independent, imaginative, and precocious 2 and 6-year-olds I know, and not because they're my grandchildren. At work, I endeavored to empower my colleagues and staff in pretty much the same way. On my first day at the Commission on Audit, for instance, I told the force that I was only passing through, and I was there only for the purpose of helping them fulfill their soaring public duty with dedication and integrity. The real work would rest on them. We agreed on 4 pillars by which we would be guided. 1, integrity and independence. 2, organizational efficiency and teamwork. 3, professional competence. And 4, strategic linkages. So that we could bring about an agile, effective, and trustworthy institution. In our planning session soon thereafter, I asked them to bring in their own ideas and a proposed action plan to carry them out over the 4-year period of my tenure. The strategic plan that resulted from this exercise became a roadmap, and we met regularly to debrief and assess our progress, refining and coordinating our efforts as we went along. The exercise gave them the opportunity to examine the mission and vision of COA, the values that should imbue our work, the working relationships and structures, our institutional strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, individual differences, needs and capabilities, the whole gamut. In the process, they rediscovered themselves, their motivation, capabilities, and personal values. The strategic plan thus became their collective expression of themselves and their commitment towards the fulfillment of their collective aspirations as public servants holding public trust. It was theirs, they owned it, and my role was simply to lead and inspire them to implement it. And in that position, I felt very privileged. Leading well, next slide, please. Leading well is about empowering others, so says the guru John Maxwell. It is empowering others to achieve things they did not think possible, pointing in the direction of and articulating a vision, adds Simon Sinek of Leaders Eat Last. To be sure, there needed to be a radical change in culture and ways of doing things for the strategic plan to succeed, and surely many were also skeptical whether it could be done at all. But I was determined to show them that it could and should be done for their own sake and the country's. I encouraged them to take responsibility and make full use of their skills and capabilities within the parameters of the action plans and the desired outcomes. I encourage them to innovate, ask questions, and think critically. When anyone came to me about a perceived problem, I expected them to bring along a set of recommended solutions and discuss one, and they did so admirably. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Empowering others, like authentic loving, is a decision and a commitment. It requires desiring the good of the other more than oneself. And just like loving, there are no hard and fast rules. In my case, I had to rely a lot on my instincts and common sense. It requires a strong will and being firm because it is easy to lose heart and feel diminished in the process. It requires a strong sense of self to be able to affirm and take genuine joy in the success and well being of others. We need to have the heart of a servant and detach ourselves from inordinate attachments and feelings of self importance because ultimately we're only God's stewards of blessings and we must pay them forward. Just as He empowers us with the Holy Spirit, so must we empower others through the God within us. For me, the rewards have been truly life giving. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Grace, for sharing
Thank
that.
you,
Okay, appreciate it. We'd like to call in someone to interact with you. In fact, it was his request, not talk afterwards or thereafter, but um, to be present while you were still around. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce someone who I've known for quite some time. He's a good friend whose goal is to instill passion for learning in people to get better and become more in general. Okay. He's partnered with the world's best in transformation and performance development, which has been time tested and research based. He now focuses on new business skills, processes, and strategies and methodologies in the age of chaos. He was also the one who facilitated the activity earlier. I'm proud to introduce my friend, Mr. Vince Concha. Vince.
Thank you, my friend, and happy birthday, Attorney Grace. You know, when
Thank
I
you,
spoke with
Vince. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
birthday.
when I spoke with you last a couple of days ago, I forgot. I'm sorry. And I hope this coming year will be full of blessings for you, for your family. And you mentioned, no, your husband, your kids, Attorney Nonoy,
Yes.
strong-willed.
Yes.
I wonder how all of you in the house are able to get along well.
We do.
That's
We're noisy. We're
that
loud.
takes a lot of patience. Well, short lang, not Grace. No, before I start, I'd like to apologize to Tita Rose Recto, who introduced you a while ago. Gosh, my mistake with the game I conducted earlier today. The number 4 question was, what was the biggest number of participants in the workshops, share cares that we have been conducting? The answer was 478, no?
Wow.
And the Gina Sposo said 600. I think she still gets the prize, but that's not the right answer. Again, I'm sorry. 478 is the number of batches. We've had 478 batches already of RCW1. Ang dami na pala, no?
Uh-huh.
So the biggest number is not 47. It's not 478, but 175. So for the record, 175 people in one class. And Rose, you got the closest number to that. So Rose, you win a prize.
Yay.
Please contact Wendy Weng to claim your prize. Ayan. Setting that aside, Attorney Grace, no, my role here is to ask you questions so we can explore, we can clarify some of the insights that you have shared. And you've shared that as 16, probinsyana, you were thrown to Manila, is that correct, by your parents to commute alone?
Yes.
And go to college?
Yes.
Alone? My gosh,
Yes.
I wouldn't do that to my kids.
Yes.
My
They did.
gosh.
And I'm
Yeah.
glad they did.
That took a lot of guts and I guess a lot of the upbringing that they had with you. So let me start off with your quote with John Maxwell saying, leading well is about empowering others. I like that. And if we were to define empowerment, that can be like the process of becoming stronger and more confident in being able to control one's life and claiming rights, no? Now, there are times when the person needs empowerment and there are times that the person needs actual help, no? So the question now is, any tips on when we should empower? Or is there like a checklist on whether we should empower or not? Simple example lang. Evacuees in Marikina, where I live and where Net lives. And there were a lot of people affected by Typhoon Ulysses. And Ne and her team mobilized and helped a lot of these people with food and shelter. So not everyone probably wants to be empowered. Help me go through this, no? Care as empowerment. So is there like a tip when we should go into empowerment or maybe just wait?
For me, it's like, when somebody's drowning, you don't empower. That's not the time for you to teach him how to swim. There's a time for you to save him, right? Rescue
Yes.
mo na. Rescue. So, ganun din yon sa empowerment. When people are drowning, and you will know that, I think that if you are very attuned to say, for example, my children, I think I know when they really need a lifeline.
Mm-hmm.
And when, it's just like what my parents did to me, I think they knew that I could handle it, that they just needed to push me. So, pero definitely, not every moment is an empowering moment in itself.
That's correct.
But but because you need some other interventions, but that intervention is in itself empowering to that person.
That's right. That's
Diba?
right. Sometimes I feel guilty of not empowering my team, my staff. And as a result, I get a lot of requests na paulit-ulit na, Boss Vince, paki-check naman ito, paki-check naman ito. And you know, I'm guilty. I always respond to giving them what they want, not empowering them. And sometimes we have people who abuse. Binigay mo na yung kamay mo, buong katawan ang gusto nilang kunin, no? So there are times that we should have empowered. Now, I guess the idea here is it's a win-win for both, no? Now, one of the authors I like is Max Landsberg. And Max Landsberg talks about the will and skill matrix, the Tao of coaching. Okay? So you can categorize people, all right, especially in the corporate world, no? When you look at their skill and their will. So it's like a matrix of skill and will. You can classify them as low skill and high skill. Yung mga matataas na skill, yung mga alam na, empowerment may be more of delegation, no? But the other component there is the will. Gusto ba nila? And we talk about coaching. Coaching, empowerment, is best if the person wants to be coached and needs the skill, the competencies. Paano yun? How do I empower people or coach them if they don't have the skill, so they will benefit from me teaching them or empowering them to do things, pero ayaw nila. They don't have the will. Any tips?
Yeah. Not a tip, siguro, but in my book kasi, empowerment is not really just a transferring or teaching of skills.
Okay.
That's part two. That's part two. The very basic, the underlying, the infrastructure, kumbaga, is you have to make them believe that they can do it, that they are capable. It's the motivation. Ako siguro, I would say, when I was growing up, of course, I did not understand anything, you know. But you know, every now and then there's that window of opportunity, and then my mother would say about while she was growing up, she was number 3 of children, this is what they would do, and this and that. Buti na lang natuto ako kasi napunta ako dito sa probinsya. My mother was a city girl, and napunta ako dito sa probinsya. Alam mo yon, and it's not derechahan, although sometimes you should go derechahan, but things like that builds you up. In the case of my children, for example, from the very beginning, you know, as soon as they're born, you really make them feel loved and very important, and they know that at the drop of a pin or something, you go running to them. Okay, so they know that they trust you, and so when you tell them things to do, they believe you. I mean, they try to go with the flow, and slowly they will imbibe. I'll tell you a story, Vince. This is with my eldest, and Ne and I were already together at that time. And I used to tell her, the eldest is always the mahirap, no? I used to tell her, I'm so frustrated with this girl. I'm so worried that when she grows up, she won't know a thing. She does not even keep her bed. She does not even want, take care of the dishes, blah, 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 blah. And then Net asked me this question, and I never forgot it. And I think that's the one that really changed my paradigm. Sabi niya, isipin mong mabuti, ano ba talaga gusto mong matutunan niya? Maghugas ng plato? Gumawa ng kama niya, magwalis, maglinis, etc., etc. Yun ba talaga ang gusto mo? Outcome na yun eh. Ano yung kailangan mong gawin? How to help her get that motivation, that drive, internal drive, para kahit wala ka dun sa tabi niya, alam niya.
Mm.
Kikilos siya. For me, that's empowerment. It's
Beautiful.
not really giving them skills. Skills lang in the
Beautiful.
abstract. So, I was so talagang I was telling Ne about this. So Tricia went to college abroad, and I set her up, and then after that I think we visited her once. Vince, she was such a fastidious, with very fastidious. Everything was organized, pati yung pagluluto niya, pati yung pag-grocery niya. And now that she's married with 2 children, no maid, alam mo naman sa Amerika, and working, she can do everything. I mean, she's so much better than I. But those things I did not teach.
So
It
so
was the
what
infrastructure, I think, that we imparted to them, to her.
so what you're saying here now is modeling. Is that it? Because you were not teaching her
Part
to
of
be
it, siguro.
motivated.
Yeah.
You were not, and you by that shift from the skill to the will or motivation, that
Yeah.
helped her, no? So, eto, I have some friends who are tiger moms. Tiger moms a lot of them would be very detailed in their approach. Any thoughts about that type of parenthood?
Hindi ako tiger mom in that sense. I'm not a helicopter mom. I think that's not a helicopter mom. I'm more strategic. For example, I never ask my children to bring home medals, honors, whatever.
Oh,
For me, it was like, how do you like that you're learning?
so
Do you need help? Pag sinabing, Mom, I can do it. Okay, great. But if you need help, you can always ask. Ganon. And then pag dating ng mga cards nila, tapos medyo, oops, ang baba naman nito. Anak, bakit tayo 78 sa language? Ang galing-galing mo magsalita. Galing-galing mo mag-Ingles. And she would, as she was explaining to me, she was actually explaining to herself. She didn't like the subject. She didn't like the teacher. And so what we tell them always was, for as long as you can sleep sound, go to bed soundly at night, and tell yourself that you did your best, not anyone else's best. No, your best. We're good.
grabe. Wow,
Ganon ang namin, ganon ang, pero mataray ang mami. Ayun, I'm not the soothing kind of, it's like,
Pero how can you be mataray and at the same time you tell them, what's more important is the learning rather than the grades? How did you communicate that? No, that's hard.
Just like that. What I mean by mataray is I tell it as it is.
Okay.
I'm not soft. I'm firm about it. So they know I'm serious.
Okay.
I mean, ganon, siguro. So,
I guess like my father, his philosophy was as long as we don't fail, but we learn. May minimum standard siya, that we pass and we graduate, but we learn along the way. See, Dr. Ruth Nemzov, and in your quotation a while ago, you mentioned our most important task as parents is to help our children develop the competencies they need to cope with what life will bring.
right.
Especially now with the pandemic and everything's shifting already, a lot of parents are, I would think, from yesterday's discussion, overacting, that we're
Yes.
overcompensating for our children now going through asynchronous or synchronous classes. And we complain now to the universities, to the teachers for not teaching our children properly. But that's another issue. So question now is the competencies. No? Maybe what would you think would be the top competencies that we need to be able to teach our young children? I have 2 daughters. You mentioned problem solving, decision making, conflict resolution. You talked about accountability and autonomy. Maybe especially now, if you were to give me tips for my two daughters, an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, what competencies may I prioritize?
Emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Emotional intelligence, kasama na dyan ang pagmamahal sa Diyos.
I like that. Okay.
Yun
Thank
lang.
you. Yun lang, ah.
Yun lang.
It's but it's hard, which leads me now to that emotional intelligence. I think that's an important part, no? One of the things you mentioned is Simon Sinek, and you said that he said leading well is empowering others to achieve things they don't think possible, pointing in the direction of and articulating a vision. And I think I mentioned this to you. I had a boss who was very good in inspiring employees, but would drive us crazy. He would tell us to work weekends and holidays because we had a mission, a vision, but he wouldn't be there. We became workaholics, but he wasn't there, no? And the other boss I had was from the US, and sabi niya, there has to be that emotional connection with your people. It's not just the vision, but there has to be that, especially now with what's happening, a real and human level connection, especially in the crisis. Kasi kung wala sila, mahirap. So let me go back to my daughters who are also going through a transition, okay, as they are maturing as well, and helping them in their emotional state. Any tip? I'm a guy here. Nandy's a guy. How do we handle kids? All right. How do we handle kids? Any tips for that emotional
How old are your
maturity?
kids? How old are your kids?
18-year-old college and 14-year-old in high school.
You're not kids anymore, Vince. Itin, let them go.
Okay.
I mean, you know what? We let our children go, but we were always there. I mean,
Yeah.
I would visit everyone at least once a year, wherever they were. There was one time I was in 3 continents because they were spread all over. Siguro isang linggo dito, isang linggo doon, ganyan, you know. So they know na nandyan lang naman si mommy. They can always pick up the phone, they can message, ganyan. But it was not for anything but, you know, to just bond and ano, kumusta na kayo? How is life over here? You know. But otherwise, let them go.
Of course.
Yung kanilang kung saan sila tumira. Sila naghanap nun. Sino gusto nilang makasama?
Well,
Sila naghanap nun.
You have strong-willed children.
Yes.
Well, the assumption here is if we're teaching them emotional intelligence, I'm thinking that I have emotional intelligence. Nandy over there also has emotional intelligence as well, as we try to help our children go through this, no?
Yeah.
It's difficult if we ourselves don't have it. So I'm gonna jump to a next set of questions.
Before that, Vince, can I just say, for example, this particular example, no?
Sige.
So kung saan sila titira while they are in college, no? Kung sino magiging roommates nila. Siguro what is very, very important looking back, no, is from the very beginning kasi, yung communication lines namin talagang open. As in open.
How
And
open?
Open. They can tell me anything.
So talaga? Wow.
Yeah, they can tell us anything. Kung minsan, natatakot ako magsabi, ma'am, kasi alam ko magagalit ka, but anyway, let me tell you. I mean, like, we are at that level na inaamin din naman nila at inaamin ko din na, you know, they could be put off. But it's always been open like that. So like, yan, about where they were going to stay. So they would tell us, These were the places that I have surveyed already. Ito yung location, ito yung ganyan, ito yung amount, blah, 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 blah. So tatanungin, we will go through that now. Oh, okay, so why do you like this place? So, we engage them talaga in conversation. Kaya alam din namin, ito kaya magiging safe, 30 minutes kang maglalakad, paano anak paggabi? Wow. You know, we play scenarios eh.
I think
siguro like me, I don't hesitate to express my concern if I find something concerning. Ngayong malalaki na sila, palagi nila akong linoloko kasi ganito pa rin ako eh. I will say, ay nako mami, praning ka na naman, you know. And but we address those things. So napag-usapan namin. So I suppose that they feel empowered that they are making the decisions, but at the same time we're actually giving our inputs, and together we're making the decisions.
You know, I think one of the reasons why that's very open, because this term called psychological safety. Growing up, they feel comfortable because you were not telling them what to do. You were mostly asking them questions for helping them to decide on their own. So they're free to tell you what they think, what they feel. And so there is that open communication. It's hard, I mean, especially dealing with people who would often criticize or comment or give negative feedback. I don't like to deal with those people, especially with bosses. Or parents who are very critical whatever I do. I think in your case, ganon. Is that true also with your husband, Attorney Nonoy? They're also
depends. Yeah, basic, yeah, ganon din.
Okay. I'm truly impressed. I guess it's from childhood you create that environment where again there's that flow of communication. Hindi sila natatakot kausapin si nanay at si tatay, no. Hats off, no?
Alam din nila pag dapat ikatakot nila. At alam din nila, naku, magagalit si mami nito, naku, high blood si daddy nito. But they would anyway. Because,
they would still tell them,
oo, kasi alam nila na gusto nila yung input namin at alam nila na siguro they feel that they're more confident if they run it through us. Ganun.
And I think that's important early on.
Yes, even when they were little.
I'm going to go to the last portion of my questions, if it's okay with you, about self-care, okay? Mm-hmm. So we talk about care as empowering. How can we empower others if we ourselves need care? So we talk about self-care, no? Can we self-empower? Ayan. I take charge of my own life. I've mentioned this before, no, about Tim Elmore. Tim Elmore is the student of one of the authors that we've talked about, and sabi niya, ito, no, John Maxwell's student, no, ang sabi niya, the starving baker. Okay, how can a baker be starving? Or you can talk about a homeless carpenter or sick doctor, a stubborn teacher, a sad comedian, no? Si Ichel, yesterday's talk about self-compassion also, tuning in on our inner self and our emotions, treating ourselves with kindness and understanding. So, self-empower. How can we apply now empowerment to ourselves? Any thoughts or comments about that?
Well, basic yan, diba? From net, we learned that you cannot give what you do not have. So you really have to make yourself whole. But there is no point in time where you can say that I am whole, no? It's really a work in progress. So we give ourselves also the same kind of care and respect that we want to give to others. And we just go and go and go and go. Hindi yung, teka, pupunuin ko muna sarili ko before I go to you. Hindi ganon eh. As you are filling yourself up, as you are taking care of yourself, you're also taking care of others.
You know, that's a balance. A lot of us in this session are also counselors who help a lot of people, and we are tired also
Yes,
of helping
yes,
other
it's very
people and
tiring. Very
ourselves.
tiring also, yes.
So I guess the care empowerment is empowering ourselves, reminding ourselves not to be the starving baker.
Kasi I cannot imagine how can you empower, how can you preach if you don't do it. I mean, you know.
Yeah. I guess it's because we're always thinking of what we're doing for other people, and we forget that other people includes ourselves.
We need sustenance, yes. But it is for us. But we don't lie here and wait for that sustenance to come in. We look for it and we make it happen for ourselves also. That is how we empower ourselves. Kaya
And
nga tayo may RCW, di ba?
oo.
That's part
and
of it. Yes.
and
Yes.
I guess that's why we're here also
Yeah.
now, with
Yes.
everybody here as a community, to be able to draw on each other's strength and give strength to each other so we can move on. We can
Right.
have, again, that community to be able to fulfill what we're meant to be. Any last thoughts? Those are my questions, Grace.
Oh, last thoughts. I never really did not give this thing about empowerment much thought until Ne asked me to talk about it today, and I thank her for that because it also made me go inside myself and realized a lot of things, a lot of blessings, really, a lot of all the hardships kasi hindi naman madaling gawin ito. But when I look back and see where I've come from and where I am now, I can only give thanks to God. It's all grace, Vince. It's all grace.
It's all Grace. Thank you, Grace.
Thank
Thank you for this
you.
wonderful conversation and sharing your insights.
Before you leave, Grace, there is a question. Is it all right with you?
Okay.
Okay. What would you do if, after all the advising and counseling to teenage children, they still pursue what they like to do?
Well, they really will do what they want to do. They are their own persons. We can only do so much.
And how
That's
would
why I
you?
think it's very important na habang maliit pa sila, andun na talaga tayo for them. But it is not a guarantee that they will always, go the way that you want them to. Sa akin, kasi maski sa mga anak ko, meron din akong mga ganyan na sana gusto ko ganito, pero hindi But, that does not diminish my love for them. That does not make them less of a person. I always pray. Always pray. Early on, I would consecrate them to the Blessed Virgin. Every time they would leave the house, I would give them a sign of the cross. And every day, when I wake up and before I sleep, I always lift them up to the Lord for His protection, for His caring, because I'm just a mom. I mean, there's only so much I can do myself. At ang may tunay na may anak sa kanila is not me, it's God. So kung ano yung tatahakin nilang landas after a while, that's probably God's will for them. And so I ask for the grace to accept it. How else? I mean, diba? Just be grateful that they've been given to you.
I have one comment, Grace, to reinforce what you mentioned earlier about one of the ways you empower your children. You said at the end of the day, for as long as you can say that you tried your best and we're good. You said that. My father gave me the same empowerment decades ago.
Yeah.
The first time I remember it clearly when I brought home my report card and I passed about 5 points above passing mark. And he said, Iho, for as long as I know that you did your best and this is what you can give me, then it's okay. I'm happy with that. So I thought to myself, okay na ako. And then he goes, but knowing your capability, I know that you can graduate at the top of your class and bring home the honors. In short, Grace, sabi niya, I want a medal, okay? So, all right. So there. Okay, so much for empowerment. There. Okay, Grace. Thank you, Vince. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for recapping, for interacting, and thank you very much, Grace. We would like to acknowledge with thanks your contribution here. And I would like to share with you a certificate of appreciation
Thank you.
Wow.
from the Reintegration for Care and Wholeness Foundation Incorporated. This certificate of appreciation is presented to Attorney Maria Gracia Itin for sharing her valuable knowledge, professional expertise, and personal insights on the topic of care as empowerment during the RCWFI 20th year anniversary virtual event themed Channeling Care. Given the Lord's abundant blessings on this 29th day of November 2020 at the RCW Counseling and Inner Wellness Center, Quezon City, Philippines. Signed by Cesar L. Carriedo, RCWFI Board Chairperson, and of course, Harriet H. Ormillosa, RCWFI Founder and Program Director. Thank you, Grace. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And happy anniversary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, okay. We are coming on to the final stretch, friends, and we call on our very hardworking Chief Administrative Executive and Trustee of the Board to summarize what has transpired this weekend. Ms. Lai Acosta. Lai?
Hello, Nandy.
Hello.
Do I correct you? It's actually Lay.
Sorry, Lay. Yes. Lay. Okay.
Sige. I
it's
forget
Lay.
na we talk on the... Ayun, sige. It's a common mistake. It's okay. So there, we thank everyone for joining us for the 2 afternoons. So it's been 10 hours of learning, and as we listen to all the sharings and the insights of our speakers, our presenters, all the testimonials, and the new action steps now we have learned that we can apply after. No? So the thing is, as with most webinars, excluding this one, so most webinars are actually just focused on what they can teach, what you can learn, correct? But the thing is, with RCW, the focus kasi is how you reintegrate it to yourself, correct? So para is the name of the foundation itself. How do you reintegrate? How do you connect everything so that everything is put into a whole piece? Everything is connected with care. So as the name of the foundation itself, and that is the mission. So with regards to what happened these 2 afternoons, it's basically just the same, no? But that's the challenge. So we have learned all these, but the thing is, how do we apply them to real life? How do we move on after we turn off the Facebook and as we eat dinner with the family? How do we live on after this? So the thing is, marami kasi when you see on the internet how to, correct? Parang there are so many webinars, YouTube videos on how to. Kunyari, how to grow plants, right? So parang very easy lang. O, you water, actually, yung mga, di ba, uso ngayon, the plantitos and the plantitas. Well, I am not a green thumb, so no matter how I Google how to, even the cactus dies on me. So I have bought, I think, the one of the most resilient plants Pero look naman, they died on me. Parang, oh, it's so sad. So parang no matter how I Google and how many times I watch the YouTube videos or read articles, hindi talaga eh. So parang andito lang siya, pero hindi ko siya na-feel. Hindi parang it wasn't parang hindi na namnam ng katauhan ko how to really take care of my plants. So parang that's the same way, no, with everything we have learned with RCW, with everything we have learned with the webinars, all the sharings and all the quotes shared on the Facebook page. Parang the challenge there is parang how do we channel the care? How can we be effective mediums? Medium malaki ba? Medium maliit. Pero the thing is, para how do we be effective channels of care? So now it is a perfect time, no? Because we are now in Advent. It is the preparation for Christmas. So parang the thing is, parang I can leave you with this. RCW has loved acronyms for decades, no? Pero since I am considered an infant in RCW, I have yet to ano ba yun? I have yet to inculcate in myself the love for acronyms. But the thing is, I want to leave you with the phrase "Be Christmas." So the thing is, the why Christmas? Because for me, it's the season of giving. It is the spirit of Christmas, which is actually the important thing there. So it is not being Santa Claus, no? Yeah, you giving. But the thing is, you are being Christmas. You are being the spirit of giving. You're being the spirit of sharing. And how do you do that? So you do that by doing all the action steps that was taught to us, right? So, but what we do now is to enrich ourselves with all the caring that we have learned. We enrich ourselves by we fill our care bank, we fill our love bank, and then from there, then we can withdraw as much, and then we can always replenish it by going into the RCW community, and then we we replenish ourselves, we refresh ourselves with bagong deposit ng caring, no? So I leave you with these few words, yun nga, be Christmas. So there, so Nandy. So there,
I'm backstage
I
na.
will leave you with
Hi again.
yeah, and hi Itin. So you're in time
Sorry
for
about
my
the technical.
transformation. Yes, so
Yes.
you're in time for my
Technical
yes, yeah.
difficulty. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Okay,
it's
yeah,
no
that's
worries.
right.
Oh,
All
if you
right.
can
Well,
only
thank
see
you.
my tie there. Oh, it's a
Yes,
Christmas.
I love
It's my
it. I love your
Christmas
Christmas.
tie. Yes.
I
So
love
there.
it.
So
Okay,
so
that's
I
great.
hope you always be Christmas any time of the year, any time of the day. What does that mean? That means you're offering, you're giving people reasons to smile, reasons to be alive, reasons to be to have the power. So we have learned all those, no? So we have learned how to be compassionate, how to be aware, how to be resilient, and how to empower. So with those, we now have those instruments. So now it is our time to channel that care to all those around us. To those who haven't watched the video, it's our responsibility now. It's a challenge for us to share that, to be the medium of care as RCW ambassadors, you would say. So there. So thank you for everyone who has tuned in for the 2 afternoons, for sharing 20 years of RCW, for all the heart work with Tita
Okay.
H. Yes, correct.
Okay. Thanks, Lay. Thank you very
Thank
much. Okay.
you. Thank you, Lay. That was a very good summary, putting it all together. Nininervyos yan kahapon pa. Sabi nga, paano kaya ako mag-summarize at saka
Yes, yes,
mag-integrate?
yes.
You did a pretty good job, and I like your Christmas outfit.
Oh,
Be Christmas.
Be Chris.
thank you,
All right.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lay. Thank you, Christmas tree.